Hey YouTube, we're back with a new tier 10 bugs stratagem tier list video. I know if you look in the previous videos, you might be like, wait, didn't you just make one like, a month ago? Yeah, I feel like I need to kind of just restart from ground zero and re-look at everything in the stratagem tier list. They recently did a big patch. I think it was like, 5 days ago or something like that. And just enough things have changed where I feel like I should just kind of come in from the ground floor and just redo it all. Also, you'll probably notice that we've added some more letters. It's been a long time coming. I've been having trouble kind of differentiating between the B+ tier and the A- tier. It's been getting kind of garbled, and just those two tiers just get so much population that I'd like to kind of spread them out a little bit more so it's a little bit easier to read. I was using the B+ to A or like B+ to B- formula of like leading some things to go to the left more if they are better and some things to the right more, but it was just getting a little bit too garbled, so we got more now. Quick explanation: S tier, something that is like overperforming compared to all of its other competition. It might have one downside maybe, but essentially it's just fantastic, easy choice. A tier, great choice, probably has a downside somewhere, maybe similar to like the Blitzer, for instance, which is like very close to an S tier, but because of its like sometimes inconsistencies and the range problems, it more or less just stays in A. B tier would be like your good, solid pick. It's not necessarily like a bad choice whatsoever, but it's just not performing nearly as well as your A tier. C tier is starting to be like that underperformer. It's below average. It needs some work, but it's probably just like a little buff to go a little bit higher. D tier is, I would probably avoid it. It's most likely a bot stratagem, or it just doesn't have much purpose whatsoever. And then needs a rework, I'm just going to have all the way at the bottom. I don't think it's necessarily a buff kind of situation with needs a rework. It's more of like I want to see this thing completely change from like the weapon it currently is to the weapon I want it to be. Okay. So, starting off with recoilless for bugs, very obvious. Recoilless just goes straight to the top. This thing is insane. You probably want to bring 1 or 2 on a tier 10 mission for most mission types, just to eliminate Ball Titans, 1 tap to the head, charges 1 tap to the head. Just so strong. It's so strong, and it 1 taps the majority of objectives, so like Shrieker Nests and Spores at a distance, whereas like other rockets will require 2 other than the spear. So solid A tier, highly recommend. EATs still go into your A tier. They're probably lower on it, like maybe close to A-, because unfortunately, like I just said, they can 1 tap like Ball Titans and Chargers and stuff like that if you're hitting the head, but when it comes to the objectives, you're actually going to have to require 2 rockets per individual Shrieker Nest or Spore Bloom, which really drives down the efficiency of the stratagem quite a bit. And obviously the problem of like only being able to hold 1 rocket can sometimes get in the way of things, and you might be like pushed away from your stratagem when you call it in. Now, if you're pretty good at throwing it into safe spots and you're bringing it alongside a normal support weapon, I think it has a lot of use in the game at tier 10. So always strong. It's also good for like team play. You can throw it down, your teammate can use it as well. Good solid stratagem. Quasar is going to be like your A+, similar to the EAT as far as damage, like exactly the same. So you're not going to be doing your objectives very well. It takes quite a while. Like if it's a 3 Shrieker Nest, like 3 individual nests, it's 15 seconds per shot, and you need to shoot a total of 6 times, right? So you might be sitting there waiting for it to cool down for a while, rather than the recoil is just requiring 3 quick shots. That kind of sucks. Also, it is quite still good at killing Ball Titans and Charges and so on and so forth. It just has the charge up time, which is a bit unfortunate, but it's still fantastic because it auto reloads and it has infinite ammo, and you could bring like a backpack. Recently, they've buffed the Ballistic one, so I've been using that quite a bit, so it's been a good time. Or if you feel like survivability is an issue, you always have the energy personal shield backpack. So yeah. Spear is going to be somewhere in like A-, B+. This one's been a bit of a difficult one for me to place because if you have enough ammo, it's pretty powerful, especially if you have like high ground and like you are the person that takes all the ammo or have a teammate standing behind you resupplying you. The issue is that it can sometimes be very like inefficient because it goes for the center mass of a target. And if it doesn't hit the head of a Bile Titan, you're requiring like 2 to 3 shots if it hits the leg or something like that. And then chargers can sometimes survive a spear shot. So it makes me want to move it more towards the B now that like so many things can just one tap these heavy targets. The fact that I can't like laser lock the head of a Bile Titan and it tracks towards the head every time is a bit awkward. It really is awkward, especially if like a Bile Titan's like side on, right? Obviously, I know that if a Bile Titan's walking towards you, you know, the rocket will like hit the head most of the time. But for those situations where they're not running directly towards you, it's pretty awkward. A better spear user can definitely dodge to the left or dodge to the right while firing it, getting it to do kind of like a hook shot and manipulate it. But I feel like its raw power is just completely trounced by the recoils, which basically does everything the spear does, but better in many regards. The commando, I think is like an A-, B+ as well. There's a lot of situations where I'd rather have the immediacy of like only needing 1 shot of the EAT. There's a lot of awkward situations where you require 2 shots to kill like that charger or that Bile Titan, and the first shot will flinch the target and the second shot will not actually land where you want it to. So you have to kind of do these like really fast 2 taps. But if you want to carry it around, it's technically the better one versus the EAT because you get 4 rockets. You're technically holding 2 separate EATs because each individual rocket in the commando does essentially 1/4, or like 4 total shots. 2 equals 1 EAT shot. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, railgun, solid. Definitely like an easy pickup for someone that wants to like help out the team, but they want to be like well-rounded. You have, you know, anti-charger, anti-spewer, anti-Bile Titan, objective killing, a little slow, but it can kill objectives at a distance as well. It's typically around 6 shots if you're going for the higher percentages. It can be very efficient versus Bile Titans if you are good at doing like 95% charges. I'm typically not, and I don't want to take the risk, so I typically go for the 3 like 80-90% charges to take a Bile Titan out. Yeah, it's a very flexible weapon. It is your Swiss Army knife, and I do think it's performing quite well, and I would recommend bringing it. And obviously, you can bring a backpack. You don't need to bring a supply backpack with it. It does have quite a bit of reserves, and just like, you know, keep an eye on where that resupply is so you can get the full 20 shots back. Autocannon is your Swiss Army knife, but even better. Because it can deal with like objectives easier. It can deal with your Bile Titans, your Bile Spewers, your Chargers, your Brood Commanders. It does everything, but even has more ammo. Yes, it has a backpack, but that backpack is essentially like a big boon for it because you have so much ammunition for it. The new flak rounds are interesting, but they're more or less just like Shrieker killers. I wouldn't necessarily use it on anything other than Shriekers or maybe Scavengers, Leapers, in some Hunter situations. But in most situations, the normal AP round has enough explosive damage that it's actually quite good at ad clear by itself. But yeah, autocannon, can't go wrong. Fantastic. Bring 3 like turrets or like 2 stratagems in a turret. You're a well-rounded loadout. It's really strong. AMR is not in the best spot for bugs. It works. And if you know it's going to be a Bile Spear mission, like you're doing an ICBM or you're doing a like a flag capture mission, like, and you know there's going to be spewers, it's quite efficient at like one tapping a bunch of heads, and it can help with the Bile Titan and it can help with the Charger, but just not very well. Yeah, it's more of a bot weapon that I see it as. It can work in some choice situations against some enemies on the bug front, but it's definitely like an okay weapon, not a great weapon. HMG is a fun one. It just got a 25 round boost, which makes me actually want to put it more reliably into the A- tier rather than the B tier. It's a weapon that I always felt like it just needed more of an ammo reserve and more of like a magazine. And we got half of that in this. 25 more rounds on top of the 75 is really good. Just make sure not to empty the complete magazine. The reload does get significantly longer, having to charge the handle and stuff like that. So if you like leave it to the last couple bullets, then reload, you'll get that faster reload, especially in those choice situations where like hunters are bearing down on you. But it's good. I highly recommend. Not as strong as like the MG43 in some situations, but it is stronger than the MG43 because it can deal with like, you know, a charger more effectively and stuff like that. Laser cannon is still in an awkward spot, in my opinion, where it doesn't quite do enough damage, doesn't have quite enough fire time. It overheats quite easily, and like I don't want to bring it to kill a lot of these targets. It's not something that you can't use. Like you definitely can use it, and it's similar to the AMR, where like in certain situations versus like ball spewers and, you know, some situations where like it's already a weakened charger, you know, you can help finish off a target. But as you probably have noticed, you don't see many people using it, and for good reason. It needs more. It needs more fire time, more durable damage, maybe a faster cooldown, more radiators in behind, so I don't like feel as punished for overheating it. Things of that nature, I think, would go a long way. Grenade launcher received the explosive range increase, and it got the extra magazine not too long ago. Highly recommend using this. This is an incredibly fun weapon to use with a supply backpack. It just pairs so well because you have so much ammo to just spread around. It's fairly good at dealing with chargers too. It takes on average around 3 shots to kill a charger's behemoth charger's butt. You're not really dealing with ball titans too well unless they like crack open a shoulder, or you can get a good angle on the stomach. But you know, it can, in a pinch situation, do fairly well. Spewers, it deals with chargers. It's good at, as I said. Brood commanders, it's not super good at brood commanders, but at least it deals with like the regular chaff enemies. Very strong, very good at that. So highly recommend giving it a try. MG43, I think this is the first time we've ever put it in A tier, but I just feel like with the continued buffs towards it and just like medium pen feeling good, I think it actually deserves to be on that like tail end of the A tier. I almost want to put it in B+, but I think it's like actually in that spot where I've seen a lot more people using it. That's just like a really solid support weapon now. And like seeing people deal with Shrieker Nests and Spore Blooms with it because they've lowered the pen requirement for those enemies. You're still not, you know, going to be great at dealing with chargers, but that's hopefully where you're going to bring like another stratagem or a thermite. And then you pair this with like a supply backpack, you are the team support, and like you're resupplying people and giving yourself tons of ammo. It's a really like good all-arounder. And if you don't want to deal with the sluggishness of the HMG, you know, I think, you know, giving up that, you know, medium plus pen, that pen 4 is like more than worth it just to get better ad clear. Sterilizer is, I think, like a C tier. I almost want to put in B tier, but I just feel like it doesn't do enough damage. You're more or less just depending on your teammates to deal with bigger targets. Like you really are depending on them, and you have like no answers to them. Because at least the AMR and other options have some kind of answer to these targets that it's not very good at, but at least they do it. With the Sterilizer, you very much are just the guy that deals with the smaller enemies, and you can kind of mess with a charge from time to time. It is fun to use, but you have to be so close, and a lot of times many people would probably just argue, why don't you just kill the enemy rather than seeing them dance around and slowly die? Which they have a great point. I'm sure there's going to be some Sterilizer enjoyers in the chat that tell me, hey, I think it should be higher. It can do this. My only argument is that, like, just not very effectively, right? It's an awesome team support weapon, and if enemies had more HP on average and they took longer to kill, and you were the guy that was like essentially stun locking them, that'd be awesome. But enemies are dying so effortlessly at the moment that you don't really need a weapon of this type. And that brings us into the next one, the flamethrower. I think it deserves to just be in the A tier, somewhere next to the machine gun and stuff like that. It suffers from range, obviously, so it's more or less depending on you getting into those scarier situations. But because like we are squishier in general at the moment, you are setting yourself on fire a lot. And that's on top of that, you have the torture available to you. I saw some comments in my last video 30 days ago where it's like, you can't do that. Why would you do that? Why would you compare that to the torture? That's like unfair. It's not a stratagem, but it's like, it's the same reason why I talk about the stalwart, which I guess we can go into right now. And I put the stalwart low is because you can just bring a primary weapon that does very similar things, if not more efficient, because it's a primary weapon, right? And you just have to bring that into context when you're looking at this. I don't really use the flamethrower anymore. I can appreciate how good the flamethrower is because of its penetration, how fast you can kill, and how good it is at like dealing with mobbing and like the bigger charges, especially if you stun them. But the torture can do a lot, if not everything the flamethrower can do, almost as efficiently, and you don't have the negative of it being a support weapon because you only get 4. You only get 4 stratagems, and it has way better handling. The torture you can whip around way faster. You don't have that handling debuff that the flamethrower does. And in many respects, I would gladly give up the damage for better handling in a flamethrower so I can like individually burst down small units that are trying to push me, right? Rather than having a very cumbersome, you know, weapon where like if an enemy like is to my right and jumps on me or is getting really close, it takes a while to turn it. And I don't want to have to use that armor to not feel like that is happening. So yeah, I think I feel pretty justified in putting the flamethrower there. It's a bit of a weird situation that it's in because how good the torture is. Arc thrower, another solid A tier. You might be like, what, you're putting everything in A tier, but it's actually like support weapons are just in a good spot. The vast majority of them are just like in good spots, and I do enjoy using them. Arc thrower is you know, your infinite horde clear with the really good stunning potential on chargers, but obviously it does suffer from some amount of inconsistency and bodies blocking. So you want to try and find high ground or reposition to get around those bodies as best you can. Arc thrower is super fun. It's a great weapon. Just be careful. Try not to kill your teammates. It's really easy to kill your teammates. Try not to shoot at enemies where if you see your teammate, like their like tag on the other side, you know, even if they're like 100 meters away, they might have moved closer to you in that time. Don't kill them. You know, just I'm trying to help out everybody here. Okay. Airburst immediately goes in needs a rework. I like that they decreased the reload speed, but oh my god, this thing is just, it's a team kill machine. It's a player killing machine as well, because it just blows up on some bodies and some weird terrain. Sometimes it triggers too early, and because of the airburst being like a V formation back towards you, it's even worse. This would be a weapon that they need to rework and just make it better, like, because we just don't need a dedicated anti-air weapon, so we're going to be using it on these like individual like enemies, like a charger or like a horde clear and stuff like that. But there's just better weapons. Like, why would I bring the airburst when I could just bring the grenade launcher for horde clear? Like, the grenade launcher is significantly better, and I don't have like the worry of killing myself nearly as much, right? So for those reasons, it's just like programmable ammo would help a lot. Obviously the faster reload does help, but like it could even get faster. And just like, I would love to see like the cluster not be that V, but maybe more of like a circular cylindrical like cluster, right? So it's more, you know, predictable against those hordes, right? And it actually has a big surface area. All right, going into our backpacks, we immediately bring the supply backpack up to S tier. Tier 10 just in general requires a lot more ammunition because there's a lot more enemies, and being able to resupply your teammates is a huge boon. You know, also giving you way more stuns, more thermites, more gas grenades, and just like gives you a lot more sustain because you just have more stims. Supply pack's awesome. It's a really easy, and it's really not a negative to have like not that much ammo reserve, because you can just pair it really well with the grenade launcher and it slays out. It's a fantastic combo. Highly recommend trying it out if you haven't. It's really fun. Going into the ballistic, I think the ballistic just needs a complete rework. It just doesn't work. It doesn't block melee. It like, you would never stand in front of a bile spewer or something like that, or a bile titan, because of the way like it's an explosive. Like, if any of the bile gets behind you, it explodes and it does deal damage no matter what. The ballistic shield just doesn't make any sense on the bug front. It needs to be completely reworked if it's going to be anything useful to be brought onto the bug front. So yeah, just can't recommend. Don't use it. Trust me. I'm gonna put the shield generator middle A. I've been noticing definitely a big surge of people wanting to bring it, just because from the last 30-day patch they made us quite a bit weaker. Like our limbs break a lot faster, and we just have less HP, and enemies deal more melee damage. That was kind of counteracted in the latest patch, where we got 8% more damage resistance with light armor. And I think it was 5% for heavy. Don't wear heavy though. Wear the light. So it was a nice buff to light armor, but the shield generator is really nice for reducing those, death counts. If you find yourself dying like more than 5 times or greater, it would be a fantastic stratagem to pick. If you're less, I think it's totally fine to die like 4 or 3 times in a tier 10 mission. It'll happen. It'll happen naturally. But to reduce those deaths on those missions where like you're just, falling over, it's great. Guard dog, I'm gonna put in D tier. This might be a bit harsh, but I think it just needs it. Like, it almost goes into rework, but I think it's a little bit better than the other reworks, and it just needs the AI change. My main reason is just like, and I've used it quite a bit since the patch, and I think it's because the other guard dogs are just better now, like on average, and I just would rather bring them. Its only claim to fame is basically if a charger is running at you, it will stun the charger, and then you're good, right? But you'll be like, Maple, well, but like it can do that to regular enemies. It does, but it just sits there shooting at a hunter, like until it dies, and then it moves on to the next one. And because the gas doesn't do that much damage, it's wasting so much time on like one individual enemy, instead of like spreading it to multiple enemies, or like, it infects an enemy, moves on to next, infects an enemy, moves on to next. If it was more efficient and like faster at like swapping targets, I would be much more willing to put it in like B or A. But it's just, it spends so much time doing dumb shit. Dude, if there's a shrieker, it will fly out into the middle of nowhere trying to kill the shrieker, completely wasting all of its time. It just needs better AI. Does that necessarily mean it's a rework? Maybe. It's just, if it just didn't waste so much time and it just tried to like spurt at it, or like maybe if gas added like a lingering effect on the ground, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm going to place it all the way down there, and I feel pretty justified in it. All right. Both guard dogs I'm going to put down at the same time, and I think they both deserve to be right there in A tier. They are very nice to use. They're very, very fun to use at the moment. And I think they perform extremely well with a lot of the weapons they're around. Like, you use the normal guard dog for just like scavengers, hunters, sleepers, and stuff like that, and warriors and stuff of that nature. And then you have the ballistic guard dog of, anywhere that needs medium pen, or medium pen is beneficial, like a brood commander. The ballistic guard dog shreds brood commanders. It's really good. Hive guardians, brood commanders, bile spewers. Hell, it absolutely demolished an impaler that was nearby, and I was like reloading my recoilless, and it like one magged it. It was very impressive, because it like actually tries to aim at the top forehead. By the way, if you guys don't know, the V spot, no longer a thing. Aim at the top forehead of the impaler with all your weapons. It's definitely the way to go. They have altered the hitboxes since the last patch. So just heads up. Jetpack. Some people will be disappointed for me putting it in B tier, but I relax. Okay. I know you're going to the comments immediately. Relax. It's not the most effective weapon. It's a very fun weapon system, I should say. It's really good for getting you out of danger, and it's just extremely fun, but it's not the most effective weapon, right? And it requires you using it at choice good moments to be effective. But in some of those situations, you could have just like used a stun grenade, or like had another stratagem or another backpack to get you out of that, and you'll be more proficient in killing all those enemies, so you don't have to run away. But for a certain playstyle of a person that is like off by themselves solo, I could see the point of it being higher, right? Just remember, as I say, a lot of these, like I put an asterisk of like, depending on playstyle and depending on difficulty and depending on like how you play, right? Like it could easily go up or down. Personally, the jetpack is just a very fun stratagem, but it's not quite there to where the mobility I want. I want to be able to shoot in the air while I'm using it. I want to have more freedom of movement also with it, not just forward and backwards, but like, you know, I can like, you know, jump horizontally. I don't like smack into a wall if I jump too fast towards it. And ragdoll, that's a new thing. Yeah. Also, if I could get some more height, I would love it to be a little bit more like the dark fluid backpack. So getting onto those high cliffs and stuff like that is even easier. We did get a little bit of height, but it's not that noticeable if you didn't read about it in the patch notes. Okay, both mechs are going to be like B plus A minus. I'm going to just stick them into A minus for now. The reason why I won't put them any higher is I said it in my last video is, and I won't put them any lower, is because they're incredibly powerful if you keep them alive. If they die, they feel very bad. 10-minute cooldown and just like in general being very susceptible to like a random like bile spewer hit, or like if you walk into that plant that explodes and as a porcupine, you like easily damage your mech. But if you're a good pilot, this thing's S tier, right? Especially for like a blitz mission or like soloing a mega nest. Like the Emancipator is insane for doing that. And then the Patriot is really good for just like horde clear. But you got to be careful. You have to be careful. If you're not careful, this thing becomes like D tier, right? If it just dies immediately every time you get into it, like it's not going to be very good. So it's a high risk, high reward stratagem. But if you can utilize it, it's like fantastic, right? And for that reason, maybe I want to put it a little bit lower to B because A is getting a little bit cramped, but I think I need to put it here just to make sure that people know that they are good, especially with the Emancipator's 25 rounds for each gun, and then the Patriot exosuit just having a fantastic like ammo economy with its minigun. It's really good. It's really good. Okay, Precision Strike, I think is like a middling B tier. I've been slowly bringing it down just because like over time, I just feel like a lot of things are either surviving it or like there's just something better you can use at the moment. I might be being a bit too harsh to the Precision Strike, but the vast majority of time at the moment, you're just seeing eagles. Like the time where like Precision Strike goes up to like A tier is when like you're on a Gat Crux, right? Like with the massive trees and stuff like that. But the radius on the Precision Strike is just so low that you basically have to like impact the chargers. If it lands next to a charger, very frequently, it just like limps away and survives. Bile Titans, you know, yeah, you're going to be using out Bile Titans, but you don't really need to bring a stratagem for Bile Titans nearly as much anymore. Like, as I've said, with like the different like rockets being so powerful versus them, they kind of just fall over to your teammate with the recoils. So this isn't as necessary. So maybe bringing an aggressive like turret, because turrets are insane right now, or bringing like you know, an orbital barrage or like something else that is just better. It's in an awkward spot because of that. Gatling barrage, I've been seeing less and less people use it over time. Still a fantastic option for horde clear, but to some extent, it's really just like the low cooldown like ad clear. It's still very good, but I'm having trouble wanting to put it like any higher than like A minus. A lot of people are like tending to go towards like your bigger hits, or even just bringing a turret or going for like an eagle like cluster or something along those lines, something that they can kind of spam out more reliably and to deal with the larger targets, or just like chaff that is more mobile. Like Gatling is still fantastic to throw down on a bug breach, but you could also just bring like clusters and throw like 5 clusters back to back, and it actually is more effective over the longer period than the Gatling. But still a fantastic stratagem. I'm gonna leave it in like A minus for now, but yeah, it's not. I'm seeing less and less usage over time from it, and I think which is fair. Okay, laser is going to be like C tier, maybe B tier, but I'm gonna put it in C for now. It just needs to have more uses, and or just remove the uses at this point. Like I just feel like so many stratagems have been buffed around it that we're at the point where like it's been kind of power crept out of existence as far as like something I want to bring regularly. You can bring it, but like it doesn't aim for bug holes, which is like a big like loss. It takes far too long to kill chargers and ball titans at times, and then its horde clear is okay, right? It's nice that you can kind of just throw it and it does its work, but it would be nice if it did more damage, because it did get a damage increase, but it did even more damage and didn't have the uses, right? The uses really hold it back, because if you're on a 40-minute mission and you're going all the way to the end, you probably already used them all. So yeah, for that reason, I can't necessarily recommend it all the time. Okay, going in with the next, we have Airburst. Love the change to Airburst. It got an extra salvo, and it has more time between the salvos. And for that reason, like, I think it's like interchangeable to some extent with the Gatling Barrage. I just like the Gatling Barrage more because it's like you can get more of them. The cooldown does matter. It's a 40-second difference between the two. And that will matter for, like, you know, being able to throw out 2 Gatling Barrages for a tier 10 bug breach versus only 1 Airburst, right? So also, Gatling Barrage actually has some armor pen capability, so it will weaken those armored penned targets. Railgun, I'm going to put right next to the laser in C tier. It might deserve to be a little bit higher in B tier, because at least you can deal with those ball titans in one go. It's just the cooldown is so long that I would rather not bring it, and I don't see many people bring it. You might see one person every once in a while want to bring it for like that surprise charger, that surprise ball titan. But dealing with charges of ball titans tend to be just so much easier if you just bring the right support weapon, or just leave it to your teammate, or just use the 500 kg, because it's not that hard to utilize that to kill them. So for that reason, we're going to put it all the way down there. I think if they gave us a second charge of it, or just reduce the cooldown by like at least a minute, it would at least go up to like B or A or something along those lines. Orbital Napalm Barrage is a fantastic weapon system. Oh my god, it is like it completely counters bug breaches. If you guys bring at least 2 to your team, one person throws it on the first part of the bug breach, and then another one waits like 30 seconds and then throws another, all the chaff is dead. It completely like nullifies the need to worry about chaff in some degree. And then at that point, you're just worrying about the, you know, the charger or the impaler or the ball titan that comes out of the bug breach, right? It's insane with just the smallest amount of team cooperation. It kills everything. It's just so good. And like, that is another reason why the Gatling Barrage gets used less, right? Because you don't really need these like stratagems as much. They're nice for like the occasional like small like group of enemies, but you could just throw a couple nades or something like that at those patrols. You don't need to use a full stratagem at them, right? Orbital Smoke is going to go way down. It needs a rework. We've talked about this one at length. Eagle Smoke actually has like a nice curtain that it actually deploys. Orbital Smoke is just weird. It like has holes and it tries to do it, and it's just weird. It should do like I throw it at the ground and it does a nice ring around you. I think Riker was the first YouTuber that I saw mention it. Love the idea. It would be like, you know, there's enemies closing in from all angles and you want to hide and like take a second to breathe. It'd be really cool as like a disengage for that, and then you run out one of the sides. It'd be very cool. I would love to see like it actually have some like better utility like that. Like, it'd be really cool. I'd love it. EMS is probably going to go right down to D tier, and honestly could just go and needs a rework. It would be totally fair to put in rework, but I do see some use of Orbital EMS. It's just not very good. If they just buffed it to be able to affect ball titans and impalers, I think immediately it would at least go to like maybe B tier. Like, it's fairly useful at that point, because like, oh shit, a ball titan's coming. I need a second. Orbital EMS like goes out and it lingers in that area and like just stuns, pauses the game essentially. Would be really nice. It's just, it gets completely outclassed by like, you know, EMS mortar or something along those lines, right? It's just, those are better options for that task. You don't need to bring a stratagem. So, and for that reason, it's just all the way down there. Walking Barrage, solid barrage option, but I still think that like 380, 120 have better like scenarios where they're more useful. There are those situations where there's a long line of enemies walking towards you, and then that's like the optimal scenario for the walking barrage and maybe like a nest on the far side so it can actually kill it, or like you're 200 meters away from a shrieker nest and you throw it and like it lands and then, you know, it kills a couple of them, which is cool. It's just, you could just throw the 380 at that horde coming towards you and it will kill more because it fires more projectiles at that concentrated and enemies will be walking into it. I just prefer to bring 380. It's just the 380 just has an easier time killing hordes, and like you can just place it on a bug breach and it gets more use out of that. Because if you're going to use the walking barrage on a horde or like a bug breach, you kind of need to let a bunch of them come out, then like kind of almost throw it at your feet and then it walks towards the bug breach. Whereas on the 380, you just throw it at the bug breach essentially. It's just far easier to get more value out of it. And for that reason, I put the 380 right up in A tier. It's a fantastic choice. You literally can't go wrong with it. Just make sure you communicate to your teammates that you threw one so they don't die to it. But it's like really good for dealing with like all your chaff, like a lot of chaff, and dealing with the bigger health enemies, and then throwing at a nest or something along those lines. It'll like break a lot of the nest up or kill the enemies that are inside, and then you can just walk in, you know, loosey-goosey. 120, I think is a great choice, but not as strong as the 380 in my opinion. It is nice that you have more available to you because it's only a 3-minute cooldown, but I would rather have the more destruction and like the one tap chance of the 380, whereas you need, you know, typically like 2 or 3 hits to kill that same enemy with the 120 millimeter barrage. But still, fantastic choice. Can't necessarily go wrong with it. You know, use it on those bug breaches and those like nests, and you can have some really great results with it. Gas, I definitely see people using it, and it does have that like CC component to it, but it's very similar to like other like gas weapons where they've lowered the damage of gas, but they have given it a lot of CC, which is really cool. And it's like fun to use on like those patrols and stuff like that, and just see them scatter and hurt, like just run in random directions. And like versus a bug breach, it more or less just pauses the bug breach, which is nice. But I can't say I'm seeing too many people use it, and I don't find myself using it all that often, because I'd rather just see the enemies die in more situations. If it affected more enemies that were like higher health targets or enemies were harder to kill, I could see the potential of gas being higher, but enemies just kind of like fall over at the moment to most of our stratagems. So it's hard for me to justify gas stratagems. I'm sure there's going to be someone in the comments that tells me, Maple, I've gotten a 50 kill streak with it, but what you're failing to realize, it was a 50 kill streak versus scavengers, leapers, and hunters. All things that are like very easy to kill with almost every stratagem we just listed out, right? Or an incendiary breaker just sitting there tap firing, right? It's cool that you can get those high numbers, but it's not really being super effective against like those higher HP units. So for that reason, I'm going to do it like A-, B+ kind of territory. I think we're just going to stick it in B for now, but I think depending on playstyle and how much you enjoy that short cooldown, you might put it higher. Rocket barrage, like 110s, it's okay. I put it right next to the precision strike on purpose. I feel as if it needs more damage and like to aim at weak spots more often. It is nice that it will one-shot an impaler if you get it at the right angle, hitting its like, you know, frontal, you know, neck, and it can do a lot of damage to a Bile Titan or potentially one-tap it if you get really lucky with the rocket placement, but more often than not, it's just weakening. If it had more uses, I'd be okay with it weakening, but because it only has 3 uses, I feel like it should be more impactful versus those higher health targets. It's very rare for it to one-tap a Charger. It's very rare for it to one-tap a Bile Titan. And for that reason, I think it's like a good choice, but you're probably going to be bringing something else to deal with those targets instead of the 110s. So if they continue to bring up the damage, I think it would rectify it, and it would probably be higher in future loadouts. Eagle Smoke is like a B-. I absolutely see the purpose of like bringing it, and I think there are those niche situations where someone might really enjoy using it, but I would argue that in more situations, it's better just to kill the enemy you're running away from, you know, with, you know, a cluster bomb or like an orbital napalm or like a turret or something along those lines. Smoke, great disengage, but it's very niche, and I would definitely say only one person brings it to help your team disengage rather than multiple people, because you're not getting that much value out of those like very niche situations. 500 kg, I'm going to put it right up in the S tier. I don't think anyone's surprised by that. Great horde clear, great killer of like Bile Titans and Impalers and Chargers. It's just an all-arounder, dealing with objectives really well. It's just a fantastic choice. I highly recommend using it. It's probably the best overall Eagle in the game. Very strong. Very, 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 very strong. It has some level of inconsistency to some amount, which is maybe why some people wouldn't put it in S tier. It's still like I threw it next to a Spore earlier today and it literally didn't blow it up. There's still some weirdness that happens occasionally, but it happens so infrequently that like I still want to put it in S tier like very easily. So yeah, for that reason, S tier. Strafing Run. It recently got an AoE boost, so like the explosive damage of each individual hit splash is not only doing more damage but also wider, which is nice, and it does kill chaff more reliably on the bug front, but I really wouldn't recommend using it versus Bile Titans, Chargers. It can kill an Impaler, but I have seen some situations where all it did was weaken it. The one word that I would put to it is inconsistent. Yes, you can be very accurate with it, but there's inconsistency to the hit splash because there's only like, I think 10 individual hits and it's like along that carpet run. Depending on how many land in the right spot will depend on how much damage it actually ends up doing, right? If they added way more hit zones for all these individual, like, because like when you see it come in, it like there's like 100 rounds that get fired visually, but if you ever look at the ground on like a desert planet, there's like 1, 2, 3. You can count very easily how many hit splashes there were, which I don't think is good. I want there to be like cluster bomb levels of like hit splashes almost. Maybe not cluster bomb, but like, you know what I mean? Like more concentration of fire in that. Like I want to be fairly certain that like if I throw it at a charger and it's like dead on the charger, right? Like I aimed it right and I timed it right, it actually kills the charger. That would be great, right? Then it would be like this high skill in a way strafing run where like you want to try and line up the charger or stun them to get them in the right spot and then throw the strafing run, you know, perpendicular with them and it kills it. That'd be awesome. I don't see that happening. And for that reason, it's mostly just like a bile spewer or like maybe to mop up a kill or to kill some chaff. It's not, it's just average. Like for every person that says it's amazing, there's someone that says, why would I bring that? Right. And that's why I think it's like a B tier. Okay. Airstrike. Some people might be a little bit surprised that I'm not quite putting it in S tier. And it's just down to the fact that I've been noticing that it's not always killing chargers. And I think it's because of the changes to Chargers HP pools. They recently like changed how it works. And if the airstrike doesn't like properly like land on a charger, like killing it, it will often like land on either side and then the charger will survive. So for that reason, it's not very effective all the time versus those guys. It is very good against Impalers, luckily, and it's very good against chaff, which is why it's like A+. It's teetering on the point of being still S tier. I just feel like it's kind of come down a bit over time because of the fact like I think that the change to the chargers has like inadvertently kind of hurt the airstrike, but it's okay because it's still a fantastic choice in my opinion. Really good for nests and like objectives and like horde clear, and just it's a multi-purpose role kind of thing. But unfortunately, it's not dealing with your big baddies, which the 500 kg can do while also doing horde clear. Cluster bombs is like a solid A tier still. I highly recommend giving it a try. Really good option to bring. Love bringing it and just like dealing with like tons of like just chaff. Just be careful not to throw it at your teammates, but like the fact that you get 5 and you can throw out 5 over the course of like that really long bug breach and just wait for a new wave, throw it down a cluster, wait for a big wave, throw it down a cluster. It's really good. And it actually more often than not kills chargers quite effectively because they brought down the HP pool of the butt. Because you can get like fairly lucky with the cluster bomb placement, a lot of the clusters will in effect like blow up the butt of the charger, or at least like heavily weaken, which is really nice. Napalm Barrage, I'm going to put in like B+. I like it. It's a fun one to just like throw on bug breaches, but because you see so many napalm barrages at the moment, its power is kind of reduced because a lot of things are already on fire on the battlefield and it can't necessarily double up. Yes, there is like a hit splash for each individual like, you know, bomb of napalm, but it's not nearly as effective as like an Eagle Strafing Run. And then for chaff clearing, the cluster tends to just be more immediate and have more success, and you get more uses of them. So for that reason, I would just rather use the cluster in more situations than the napalm. Napalm's like still a really good option. It's just, you know, I think it's just getting outclassed in too many situations. Okay, next, going to turrets. If you guys haven't seen, the Gatling, machine gun, rocket sentry, autocannon all got, and Tesla. Can't forget the Tesla. All got a 30-second decrease on their cooldown, which is really good. Really good. It makes me want to use them far more often, and like you can really make like a turret build like work very effectively. And in many ways, it's going to be like outperforming like your other stratagems and like work really well. They also gave the Gatling 100 more rounds. They gave the machine gun sentry, I think it was something around 100 more rounds. So these like weapon systems are like doing really well. Highly recommend like giving them a try. And like for that reason, you're going to see me like putting them a lot in like A and B tier. Like they are doing very well in respect to the game. So Gatling Sentry is like teetering between B tier and A tier in my opinion. Very strong. The only reason you would maybe want to put it a little bit lower is the team killing potential. It does have that problem of like an enemy shows up behind you, it does a 360 and just mows down all your teammates. You got to be a little bit careful of that, but I do love how like good it is at killing things, and then the fact that it's at like a lower cooldown now, it makes it very effective for just like throwing it down. Just make sure you're putting it in a good spot. It's the reason why I'm not going to put it any higher is that because sometimes you can put it in a bad spot and a charger just absolutely like destroys it, or a ball titan or something like that. Or just like it gets like overwhelmed and then it gets destroyed very easily. So just be careful where you're putting it. High ground always is best, but yeah. Machine gun sentry is going to be put right next to it. Fantastic options for like dealing with chaff. Obviously not really dealing with a charger or a ball titan, but like really good options if you already have like a recoilless that can deal with those options. Very good. Highly recommend. And unlike defensive kind of situations, like on certain maps, like you can kind of go AFK, which is hilarious, and just like let these things go loose. Rocket Sentry is obviously going to be really high up there. It can kill chaff almost as effectively as the other options. Not quite, but it deals with your chargers, deals with your ball titans, deals with your impalers. It's just, and it has so much ammunition. Like you can easily see a Rocket Sentry fire up until the next Rocket Sentry is ready. It is insane, the ammo economy, especially with this like cooldown decrease. Like it's awesome. Highly recommend trying it out if you haven't used the Rocket Sentry. Like I said with the other ones, high ground is your friend, and you might need to protect it a little bit because like small little bugs can like definitely like bother you, but Rocket Sentry is just so good. Autocannon Sentry is going to be your other one. That's going to be in the A tier. It's going to be a little bit closer to like A-. But for that reason, like it just doesn't have as much of an ammo economy, but it's got the DPS and it deals with your heavy targets very effectively while also being good at chaff. Tesla Sentry is going to be B. It's awesome. It's great to use. Some people might be like wondering why is it not an A tier? Right before doing this little story, we were using the Tesla and it does great. It kills super effectively. But I had this teammate that I swear saw the Tesla as an enemy. Every time I would throw the Tesla, not even near the bug breach that close, they would just throw a barrage or an airstrike too close to it and it dies, right? The potential for the Tesla is even higher than B tier, but the problem is that it's so easy for it to get friendly fired because you often have to throw this in somewhat precarious situations that will get it killed. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in B, but in certain situations, it could be S. It's fucking insane. Excuse my language. It's very good at like stunning chargers, very good at ad clear, spewers, and so on and so forth. It gets killed by bile titans, but like hopefully you'll be like watching over it with like some kind of AT or something like that. But really strong. Highly recommend checking it out. The fire rate increase it got as well. That's another one I forgot to mention. Fire rate increase on it is so good, man. It's so good. I'm so happy they did this. It now feels like a proper turret that I want to bring, and it doesn't feel like I'm trolling. It's great. Okay. MG emplacement, solid option, but it takes a lot of shots to deal with your higher health targets. And remember, when you're on the turret, you're not firing. You're not using your support weapon. You're not using your stratagems, right? You're also very vulnerable. If that turret blows up, you immediately die, right? So I need to preface that because like it's like a sunk cost fallacy, right? Like you need to perform on it to make it worth the stratagem because it's not autonomous, right? You could throw down an autonomous turret and it kill almost as effectively as you would, but it's doing autonomous while you're also doing something, right? So I think it's an extremely fun stratagem to use, but it's not like extremely effective. It's good, very good in the right hands, and especially if you like position in the right spot. But remember, you're not firing your own weapon when you're on it, right? You got to keep that in mind. You're not firing your own weapon, and it's not super effective versus the higher tier targets all the time, right? A charger can definitely bully you when you're on this thing if you don't start shooting that leg immediately once you see it. Both mortars, I'm going to put in like B tier. You're not really using them on bug missions except for defensive missions, which is why I'm going to put them in B tier. But EMS mortar can be used in like some choice situations, which is why some people might want to put it in A tier, but I don't really see people bringing it. Most of the time, they would rather just see the enemy die. Aggressive mortars are still team killing quite a bit, even though like you have the marking. Just people don't always mark the right targets and they don't mark fast enough. But like on a defense mission, mortars are awesome. If your entire team brings mortars, you can basically just go AFK. They're going to spawn camp the bugs and they're just going to do such a good job. They did not benefit from the cooldown decrease, which mostly affects them on the 40-minute missions, ironically. It didn't really matter for the defense missions because like you're just staying in one spot and you're usually throwing it and they still have ammo anyways on defense missions. It would have been nice if they got a decrease on the cooldown as well, so you could be more aggressive and like, you know, keep throwing them out, move forward, throw out another one, you know, move forward, throw out another one. It can slay out, which is why I'm going to put it here, but very often it'll also slay your teammates. EMS mortar, not quite as deadly, but I still find that not that many people are really needing the lockdown potential. Like we were talking with, like CC is not very important at the moment because enemies just die. They just fall over. So you don't really need the, you know, the lockdown or like the CC of these enemy or these systems on enemies. So, all right, mines. I don't think anyone is surprised that I'm putting mines in D tier. At this point, they don't necessarily need to be reworked. They just don't work very well. You know, they are continuously getting some amount of buffs. I don't know why they didn't decrease the cooldown on mines. That one is like totally over Arrowhead. I don't know why. I really don't know why. They really could have benefited from a lower cooldown. They would be better on like those situations where like you have a bug breach and stuff like that, because it wouldn't be as punishing when that teammate throws a cluster bomb and it blows up your entire minefield. You know what I mean? Yeah, I also making mines maybe a little bit harder to trigger. There's quite a few times where like one bug walks onto the minefield, blows up a mine, dies, but then the body like flies across the minefield, blowing up like 20 more mines. Like that kind of sucks. Like, yes, the explosions aren't like triggering other mines now, but mines are still not a great spot. And I still don't necessarily recommend them. They're a detriment to your team and they're detriment to you because you could just bring a better fourth stratagem. You know what I mean? Like, they're fun to like just mess around with, and like your entire team brings mines and you just have a minefield everywhere and enemies can't move. But that's like very extreme situations where you could do that with any stratagem and it would just be even better, right? Anti-tank mines, I'm going to put up to like C tier. Better spot now that we don't trigger them. And for the most part, like it absolutely demolishes a charger, but you're going to be hard pressed to get a Bile Titan to stand on it because they have like small little pointy feet. And on top of that, your teammates are probably going to blow them up, right? You're going to have a bug breach in front of you. You're going to throw them down between you and the bug breach, and the enemies are going to walk towards it. And then all of a sudden your teammate's going to throw down like a napalm barrage and all your mines are dead. So you just wasted a 3-minute cooldown. Another one that should have had a reduced cooldown. I don't know why the cooldown is so large. They wouldn't be nearly as bad if you didn't feel as punished for like your teammates blowing up your mines, right? Because at least with anti-tank mines, you can kind of just like randomly throw them out if it's a low cooldown, and they'd be fairly like impressive, right? Because you don't accidentally trigger them, and they won't be triggered on like dumb little enemies. So like if you can like bait a charger into the minefield, that's awesome. Like it's a really good way to kill a bunch. But because of the long cooldown, they feel very niche and they're very like, you know, hard to make work at sometimes because with like certain teammates. Okay, with the shield generator, this one's a bit of a weird one. I don't know exactly where I want to put it. I've been like debating in my head, like, is it a C tier? Like, it technically works pretty good against a Bile Titan or a Bile Spewer. And if you throw it down, a charger will like hit the like edge of the shield generator and then kind of get like knocked like you hit a surface, then walk in, which is kind of cool. Like if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed by chargers, you can kind of like sit inside of this and like chargers can't really immediately run over you, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like a CC effect. But it's not entirely useful. It doesn't last that long. And in a weird way, the larger radius is almost a negative because the enemies have an easier time getting into your bubble. And then you might feel pushed out and then they have cover from you. It's kind of an awkward situation where like the radius increase might not have been the best thing for them to add for it. It's not necessarily something I needed. And the extra health regen didn't necessarily do anything for the bug front because it wasn't ever really getting destroyed due to damage for the most part. Like it was getting destroyed because like the enemies just walked in and hit it, right? And it doesn't last that long still. So yeah. I think I'm probably just going to put it in like D tier, C minus. I think it's probably like D tier. It's just not particularly good. Okay. And that is my tier list. As you can probably notice, a lot of things are moving up. Like it's definitely like, you know, as far as a tier list, you know, it's getting a little top heavy, but I feel like I'm pretty justified with a lot of it. Just remember, like, every stratagem here, depending on use and scenario, can easily go up or down. We talked about that with the Tesla Tower, right? Like in an optimal situation where you place it very effectively, like it can absolutely be an S tier, especially if your team is to blow it up. But on an average situation, right? An average scenario, it's good, right? It's a good option, but not gonna be like overperforming versus like a Rocket Sentry, for instance, which, you know, works really well in more situations. So yeah, I love the buff culture that we are getting with Arrowhead. I love it. Can we just get a little more difficulty with some harder tier missions in the future? A lot of these stratagems are extremely effective, but you know, I want to see some more difficulty in future difficulties. So like difficulty 11, 12, maybe we get some stronger enemies that don't get like absolutely one tapped. Or something along those lines, or just like maybe more consistent bug breaches or longer bug breaches. Who knows? Who knows? We'll see what we get. But let me know down below what you guys think of the tier list. We've been playing quite a bit, and this is just my opinion on the matter of the balance at the moment. Stay tuned for, you know, bots and weapons as well. We're just, you know, getting through them one after another. It takes some time to update them. So yeah. Thank you, YouTube. Consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribe down below if you like the content. There's a Discord if you're interested in having a discussion, or I was live during the entire tier list. So if you want to come by and talk to me, you know, when I'm live, almost every morning except for Mondays, streaming some HG2. So yeah, thanks YouTube. Bye.